I really don't know why you're all here. Because according to Joanne Lamont, who is the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, and I quote, "We are not genetically programmed in Scotland to make political decisions." Now get that, genetically. That means that collectively we are the safties of the United Kingdom family, perhaps the collective village idiot of the United Kingdom. And I wish she was here tonight to realise that Scottish people are perfectly capable of making an intellectual judgment on the political issues that lie before us. At 7 a.m. on the 18th of September until 10 p.m, during those 15 hours, we, the Scottish people, for the first time ever, are absolutely sovereign. Nobody can interfere with us in those 15 hours. The decision, therefore, in those 15 hours, that faces everybody when they pick up a wee bit of paper called the ballot paper, is whether at 1 minute past 10 we've kept that sovereignty or we've choked and given it away to be a minority inside a country where we'll be discounted. It'll be another Scottish Flodden. In that battleground, the Scots held the high ground and all the aces and threw it away. In this one, we hold all the aces. Do we throw it away? The working class in Scotland are in a majority. We can win and determine the vote on the 18th September. So the responsibility lies upon the working class in Scotland more than any other section of our community. And there's something we must understand historically. We are not here by accident. There have been historical forces at work almost since 1850, when the decline of the English Empire began, when the United States and Germany superseded British steel production. We've had steep decline after 1945. We're now in the final stages of the decline of the British/English Empire. Think about this. Why was the Queen, with the Duke of Edinburgh dressed as an admiral of the fleet, on a wee boat up the Thames for the Jubilee? Every other Jubilee, the monarch has reviewed the fleet, the great, big, powerful British fleet. When I joined the Navy in 1955, we had a home fleet, a Mediterranean fleet, a Far East fleet, and a West Indies station. The reason she was in that wee boat is that there's no fleet to review. And that's a sign of the decline. There's another sign up in Rosyth called an aircraft carrier, which is coming up here on the 4th of July to launch. The sign of that is they've built an aircraft carrier, they can't afford to put aircraft on the aircraft carrier. So we're at the end of that decline, and we've a chance to escape. Now, I'm very sorry for the folk in Geordieland in the northeast of England and in Merseyside. They're stuck as regions of a declining power. We are a nation, and so we have an option not available to them, and we would be mad not to take of it. Now, in the House of Lords debate, Lady Liddell, who used to be the General Secretary of the Labour Party, said that she is a proud Scot. I'm not a proud Scot. How the hell can you be proud of 250,000 children living in poverty? How can we be proud of that? For the first time in my life, we have people who are destitute in our country. They go along if they miss a 2:30 appointment at Thursday with a job centre, and they turn up at 4 o'clock. Maybe somebody's been ill in the family. Maybe they missed the bus. Maybe the bus didn't come. They're sanctioned. That means no benefit. They have no money at all. That would be inconceivable when I was a boy in Seaforth Crescent. We went through the war, austerity. Nobody starved. Nobody was destitute. And that's the future inside declining United Kingdom. They're heading for a debt of £1.5 trillion. They're going to have cuts as soon as the election next year is over of 25 billion in year one. And then there'll be another 25 billion. Then there'll be another 25 billion. And it's the poor and the working class who will pay that price. We can escape from that. And that's the reason I wrote the book, In Place of Fear 2. In Place of Fear was written by an Iron Bevan in 1952, telling the working class that you don't need to put up with the conditions that you have endured for generations. And I'm arguing in that book for an entirely different approach to our economy. We've got to look at, we're a small economy. We're 5 million people in a world of 7 billion people. We're fairly open. We need to trade. How do we live as an independent country in that world where power is shifting from the Atlantic to the Pacific axis, where Asia is rising as Europe becomes in stalemate? We've got to concentrate on the resources. And the most important resource we have is our people. People are the resource. And I've looked at education. Are you aware of the fact that every independent school, which I call private schools in Scotland, get an 80% reduction in their council tax? 80%. That means up in Edinburgh, Fettes, instead of paying £209,000 in council tax, pays £41,000. Westerhales on the other side of Edinburgh, 40% of the Wains are on free school meals, and an area of massive deprivation pays £261,000. Now, the reason they get 80% is charitable status. And the test of charitable status is doing public good. Now, just think of this. Fettes gave us Blair. Govan High School gave us Jimmy Reid. Hamilton Academy gave us Margaret MacDonald. Who's done the most public good, Fettes or the state schools? Now, what an Iron Bevan taught in that book was that the greatest armament in a socialist is audacity. The audacity to think what the establishment told you you mustn't think. And the audacity to do what they tell you you can't do. Well, I looked at the Charities Act, and the only reason our state schools don't get 80% is that there's a link to the minister because he ultimately pays. All you need today is remove that link, and the state schools get the same 80% as everybody else. And that's more money going in. But that's not enough. It's what we do with that money. In areas of deprivation, the teachers are struggling in school because of the circumstances outside of school. So we've got to be able to employ that money to tackle that. So without an extra penny, we can make more money available to the state schools. And we can go further. We've got 32 education authorities in this small country. 32 directors of education, 32 bureaucracies. Cut them down to 5 and we transfer £500 million from bureaucracy into the schools. That gives our young people a chance. Way back in 1973, in the then Scottish Grand Committee in the House of Commons, we debated a document called Born to Fail. And here we are, in 2014 supposed to be better together, and we've got 250,000 children in poverty, born to fail. They have talent, they have ability, and we've got to give them the opportunity to see it flourish. Do you remember the Raploch in Stirling, where the big ban came? The Raploch was an area of deprivation. People had no hope, no self-confidence, and were lacking self-respect. When that big ban went in there, those children suddenly discovered that they had talent, and that talent has begun to flourish, and that area is being transformed in terms of its self-respect. That's what we can do inside a socialist Scotland. And as for jobs, we've 157,000 families on the council waiting list at the present time. How do you solve that? It's no rocket science. You build houses. Simple as that. If you start to build houses, people have to manufacture bricks, folk have to manufacture cement, folk have to quarry sand, somebody has to transport it, and folk have got to use it to build houses. So you've created jobs right along the line, and you've created apprenticeships, real apprenticeships, at the end of which young men and women are full journeymen. No problem inside a socialist Scotland. I've written a socialist programme, but I'm no daft. I was at a private meeting in Edinburgh among a group of right-wing people, and I was to talk about socialism, and they were very disappointed. They thought I would come along as a Stalinist. And I said, well, for God's sake, give us a break. I mean, you know, we have learned a thing or two since then. Just, you know, we're not as daft as Joanne Lamont thinks we are. One of the important job-creating sectors in our society is the small, medium-sized enterprise sector. We've got 340,000 small, medium-sized companies in Scotland. That's no big capital. That can be the lassie that's running a cafe, it can be a taxi driver, or somebody running a small factory. They are badly treated by the banking system. One of the cafes I go to, the lassie was saying to me she wouldn't mind if she could only get 20,000, she could expand a bit and employ somebody, but the banks don't want to know. I said, phone them up and ask for 20 million. I said, you'll get an interview. You might not get the money, but you'll get an interview. Because the bonus in 20 million compared to 20,000. But it's people like that. And I'm advocating we create a special bank for that section of our community. And if only half of them created 2 new jobs each, then we would start to transform the position for the working class as far as jobs were concerned in our society. Now I want to have a word about oil. All the arguments about oil are about the tax revenue we get or don't get from it. I want to talk about oil on 2 grounds. First of all, for a country of 5 million people, 1.4 million barrels a day is a big bonus. It is not for a country of 60 million people. For 5 million, that's big stuff. Not for the United Kingdom's 60 million. So when you hear them talking about the oil will disappear and the oil is being depleted, 1.4 million barrels a day for 5 million is something that we can do a great deal with. But I want to talk about the black stuff itself. With that amount of oil available to 5 million, we can do some quite remarkable economic things with it. We just need to take a portion of it and make petrol, diesel and jet fuel for aircraft much cheaper than it is at the present time. No problem. Just think what Nye Bevan said. Have the audacity to think differently, out the box, and say, we can do that. And imagine the transformation. First of all, there's monies in the pockets of families. You stimulate the transport industry. And if you're talking about Prestwick Airport, if Prestwick Airport was able to offer jet fuel much, much cheaper than anywhere else, the chance of having direct flights from there is greatly improved, because the cost of the jet fuel is a big, big factor in air transport. That's the kind of thing that we can do with it. For tourism, a lot of our tourists come from the north of England. Man, wife, two wains, in a car, up. They hardly ever get beyond Edinburgh or Glasgow because of the cost of the fuel as you go further north. Just imagine if it was cheap. The difference that would make to the tourist industry north of the Forth. That's the kind of thing, if we are in control of our economy, that we can do, that we are prevented from doing at the present time. I want now to talk very briefly, but importantly, about equality. We are one of the most unequal societies on this earth, as in the Americans. You know, we're at the top of that dreadful league table. What we've got to do is provide the living wage inside the public sector, then give the private sector 5 years grace in which they then pay the living wage as well. We've got to have full employment as a government policy, because if the working class cannot sell their labour, then they cannot get the kind of money they require for a decent life. And a further step, as I've argued in that book, inside the public sector, no one at the top will get more than 13 times what the person at the bottom of the pay scale gets. It is beyond... It is beyond my belief that people who are highly paid for doing a job in the public sector get a bonus for doing the job that they're highly paid for, and we bring that to an end. My final remarks are about an idea in the book where I was told, don't put it in, folk will mock it. There's 2 aircraft carriers being built. One they can put a crew on, if not aircraft. The other, they don't know what to do with it. They wish somebody would buy it. I'm sure Argentina would buy it, but they can't sell it to Argentina. The Indians have got their own, China's building their own. We'll take it. 70,000 tonne. We'll turn it into a hospital ship. There's a hospital ship operates in Africa just now called the Africa Mercy, which does remarkable work among the people who've got no medical cover whatsoever. Just think of Scotland's reputation. We don't send people out to kill others, we send them out to heal others. The Africa Mercy has 5 operating theatres and does 3,300 operations a year. Just think what a 70,000-tonne hospital ship can do. Fly in the Saltire and named the Robert Burns. Now, my time is up. You used to tell me that in here as well when I was a councillor. Trident is one of their... We'll come to Trident. My book is about a priority in terms of economics. What we can do is not pie in the sky, it's what can in fact be achieved. But it can only be achieved if the Scottish working class realise that they have enormous talent, and realise that at 10:01 on the 18th September, they have won, and that this land of ours, which has not been in our sovereign possession for 300 years, this land of ours returns to the working people.